All right, let's do Micron. I don't know where ambition comes from. It's a good question. I think as you get older and wiser, it starts with like kind of negative connotations like megalomania, ego, stuff like that, right? And then eventually you get into leadership and, you know, wanting to be somebody that helps others achieve their full potential, which is what I think the job of a CEO is. My cat's rumbling around here. And I have a house guest as well. If you don't understand what you're looking at, then please don't comment on it. Because you're going to get me mad, and you don't want to get me mad. Okay? I'll become the ballistic autistic. You don't want to see that. It's a guest. I'll wake up the whole ghetto. He's screaming out the window. Back in my old neighborhood in Brooklyn, that's all you need to do is just shout out the window. Wake up the whole neighborhood, doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Gunshots ring out, doesn't matter, nobody cares. Ambulance, sirens. I live a little differently today. Sava, $2,400, let's go! The shorts will owe more money than the U.S. Treasury. They won't get stopped out. I mean, the bank will have to stop them out. Yeah, I'm a New Yorker, through and through. So I'm just going to say I don't know anything about Micron. I, of course, know the company. I followed it, you know, on and off since I was a teenager. But other than DRAM, there ain't a lot I can tell you. So this will be more exploratory than informative. Oh, wow. Revenue jumped. So this is like one of the most cyclical businesses. The way Kramer taught me this business passively, not actively, is that basically is this like super cyclical, it's as cyclical as paper or other like super cyclical businesses. We used to trade IP, international paper, and that was like one of the most cyclical businesses. When the economy was doing well, they would make a fortune. When it was doing poorly, they would lose a fortune. So you couldn't, as a child, like the way I thought about that is how do you use a PE ratio? Because every noob is taught to use PE ratios. And I hope that you have learned from me that that's a very faulty idea. Now you could average earnings over 5 years. You know, yes, Jim Cramer. I worked for Jim Cramer when I was 16. So how do you apply PE to negative earnings? You know, that's kind of the mental puzzle there. And if you haven't come across that one yet in investing, maybe you should. All right, so DRAM is actually a pretty low margin business. You think they make a ton on those chips? They don't, 27%. No, I made a post about exiting Liquidia a while back. So I know that they're still, let's see, where is this thing? Yeah, it's still doing all right, I guess. I think it's come down a little bit, right? Yeah. But yeah, it was my first post on Wall Street Bets, and then the Wall Street Bets morons banned me. because they don't want good stock pickers there. Even though I was one of the first members to give it any attention. You know, no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah, I think Godel Excel plugin would be pretty good. And also export to Excel feature. You can negotiate a job offer depending on the situation. Yeah, sure, of course. There's circumstances with which you will work there and circumstances where you won't. And you gotta give me the circumstances. I need my circumstances up front. But if you don't have negotiating leverage, maybe just take the job, right? IB is a relatively new thing for Bloomberg, and it's kind of, do you like it? Not IB, BI. BI is a relatively new thing for Bloomberg, and I don't know, to me it's a little weird that they're trying to compete with their customer. You know, their customer provides research, typically, sell side, and the buy side pays for it. And now they want to be have their own analysts. Seems like a kind of a strange idea. It's not really a business people want to pay for on Wall Street anymore, so I'm not sure why they want to pay for it on Bloomberg. Yeah, I know it has the prescription thing. That's that we can provide. Oh, my cat just makes stinky. Yeah, Anduril's great. I know a lot of the people there. My friend is the COO, I want to say. But, you know, they built that company really well. Yeah, a lot of Anduril people invested in my company, DL Software. I do know Palmer, I know all those dudes. Great team, man. They're going to build a $100 billion company. Matt, all the guys there. Trey. I need to sell them some Gorilla Gas, though. Speaking of which, where's my gas? I don't have any at the house. Only at the office. So let me think here. Desktop app. Yeah, it's not hard to have like an Electron app. If you're familiar with that. You could just make it desktop. But if that's what you want, that's what you will get. Alright, so Micron. We'll go to Micron's investor relations website. I don't know, I just have an iBook or whatever, the fucking best MacBook. Yeah, Palmer, Carmack worked for Palmer. Oh, Carmack used to follow me on Twitter, so I'm sure I could call him up or something, but yeah, he's a legend. Okay, I don't want any... Okay, so this was Q3. I want to show the world how to analyze stocks, and I want to give you the software to do it. Not just stocks, though. Any investment, any financial security or asset, and then maybe even things outside of that too. Just how to work with data, how to think about and organize it, and how to use tools that, you know, maybe you're not a programmer Although I think everyone should be a programmer. And I'll probably do some like classes on how to use this stuff if you are a programmer or if you're not, or, you know, just basics. I wish I had more time. A lot of things pulling and pushing me in different directions. I don't know about the tau antibody. I doubt it'll work. Tau doesn't really seem to be causal. It's more after the fact. What do they call that? Epiphenomenon? Okay, so they say fourth quarter is going to be 7. Ooh, wow. Big number. 7.6 billion. I see. I see, I said. Jealousy, I said. Got the whole farming industry mad at me, I said. Gross margin, what the heck? Even the kitchen cooking pies. Yeah, I noticed that Microsoft has a financial programming library, which is kind of cool. Biden-Harris administration, yay! Y'all fans of Kamala? Big Kamala fans up in here? You're with her? Is everybody with her? I hope so. Shit. Kamala. Kamala. Listen, get your pronouns ready. Get your damn pronouns ready. I'm ready. I put my pronouns everywhere. I pledge allegiance to my pronouns. Better get them shits ready. You think this is a game? Think you're not gonna need your pronouns? Get that shit ready. And you can't make no funny pronouns like I'm him or himothy or stop that. There's nothing to play with. You wanna go to jail? I went to jail. It wasn't fun. You think this is a joke? You know what, go ahead. Go ahead. Matter of fact, go ahead. See what happens. See what happens when you don't have your pronouns all straightened out. I want to see what happens. Think you have freedom of speech? Nah, you're doing hate speech. That's different. That's a crime. Welcome to jail. Now mop this floor, sucker. Oh, you don't think you can go to jail? Ask Diddy what happened. Ask him. Why you in MDC, Diddy? What'd you do? Caitlyn Jenner will fuck you up. No, Caitlyn Jenner's kind of based. I don't know if I saw nasty stuff in jail, but it just sucks being there, you know? It's pretty normal for like what you would, you know, versus TV or whatever. Opportunity cost of jail for me was probably a couple $1 billion. It's all right. Shit happens. Can't cry about it. I mean, there are people who will cry about it, but you gotta stand tall. No, nobody romantically interacted with me in jail. I'm not gay. There are gay people in jail though, just as there are everywhere else. So if you happen to be gay, then you can definitely get into relationships in prison. It was pretty funny though, because you'd have dudes who would have relationships, right? And there was one guy, he's like very flamboyant gay guy, and why are you gay? And this dude, no, I would not go to jail for 200 mil in 5 years. Hell no. So there's this like flamboyantly gay guy in jail, and this other dude was picking on him. This guy was kind of a meathead. He was kind of a dickhead, honestly. But the gay guy was pretty insufferable himself. So anyway, the gay dude gets his boyfriend to fucking beat the shit out of this guy. And the guy's walking around with the black eye. He's fucked up. You know, and this is a tall, like, beefy dude. And his face is all fucked up. We're like, yo, what happened to you, dog? I'd say his name was James. I don't remember what his name was, to be honest. James, what happened, bro? And he was like, yeah, well, you know, I got into a fight, da da da. And we're like, oh, did dude's boyfriend fuck you up? And it's like, dude's boyfriend fucked you up. It's the funniest thing in the world. I don't know why. Yeah, man, you gotta be careful who you fuck with. There's another guy, let's just say his name was John. John was the toughest gangster I've ever seen, bro. He would, like, have, like, a toothpick in his mouth at all times, even though we weren't allowed to have toothpicks. I don't know how he got one. And he would just be like, yeah, man, I had the bands rolling up on 30s. Whole neighborhood knew that was my piece. Out moving weight with the cartels. I have Baltimore on lock. I was like, okay. He's like, I'll fuck with you, Shkreli. Tell them people they can't control you. I was like, yes, John, you're right. And he really talked like that. And so then, you know, we keep chatting. And I like the guy, and the whole jail respects him. You know, he's an OG. Whatever that means. And one day I realize he's on the DL. What does that mean? The down low. He's gay. And he kind of... He's basically gay for the stay. So he's gay in jail only. And he's like... it was such cognitive dissonance. It's like, it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. What did we see him doing? I think we saw him, like, sitting down next to another gay dude. And I think maybe he had, like, his hand around him or something, and we were just like, yo. And yeah, nothing wrong with homosexuality. It's just this guy was a thug, you know? He was really the baddest guy. And he was like, yeah, I'll kill somebody for just saying some shit about me. And I'm like, yeah, me too. You're right. That's mandatory. I would learn phrases like that. Mandatory is something a lot of the thug guys like to say. So he would say something like that. He would be like, I'll kill somebody for even looking at me the wrong way. And I'd be like, mandatory. That's mandatory. That's Mando. And he'd be like, yeah, it's my man's. It's mandatory, right, Shkreli? Yeah. So look at Micron. course. Look at Micron. So in cyclical downturns, the gross margin is negative. All right, do you see that, chat? So I'm talking about gross margins negative, meaning it costs money to make their product more than they sell it for. You might say, why not just throw the product away? Well, hold on. What is cost of goods sold, chat? I'm going to teach you something. What goes into cost of goods sold? You're making DRAM. What is this line? What is it? You guys know? Maybe ask ChatGPT. How do you make DRAM? It says crushed berries. Okay, you know what? Google is not so great. I'm going to ask ChatGPT. What is the process of making DRAM like? Okay, you do need a wafer. You need to oxidize it. You need to use lithography with a photoresist layer. Is that a mask? You need to etch. You need to dope. You need to form capacitors. Is that a separate process? And then you do all this other stuff. Clean room environment, etc., etc. Not easy. So is silicon the main ingredient, if you will? How much does that cost? Yeah, silicon is the primary material, which is the substrate for semiconductors. Price can range based on purity, market demand, and the form. High purity silicon wafers can cost anywhere from $10 to several $100s a wafer. Interesting. Sounds like the wafer is pretty cheap and the process is the expensive part, or both? You're correct. The wafer itself is relatively inexpensive compared to the overall cost of the process. The wafers can be affordable, but the complex steps require expensive equipment and significant labor. So what goes into the COGS? Is this all wafers? What do you think, chat? No. Okay. So what's in here? We got wafers. What else? Labor. Emmanuel says labor. Great. Anything else? Electricity. Ah, machines. Thank you, Alex. That is the question. So how do we recognize these? Because look at these quarters, right? If it cost me $4.4 billion to sell 4 billion of chips, I'm just not going to sell the chips, right? Why lose extra money? Right? Shout out to Zaloof. That boy might make a trill. So machines are depreciated. And depending on that depreciation, these COGS could kind of not really reflect the true economic gross margin. Right? Yeah, the camera's weird. I don't know what's going on with the camera. Maybe restart the camera or something. How are we doing? Better? I think that's better. All right. Stop playing with my hair. Why? You hate me because I'm beautiful? All right. Yeah, I'm a little tired. I didn't sleep maybe as much as I should have. Leave nibbles alone. It's my kitty cat. All right. So the actual gross margin net of machines might be positive. That's the point. Do you get that? The machines you buy once, but you depreciate them over time. So they might actually have positive gross margins, but because you have to expense the machines a certain way, that's sort of the issue. So here you have GAAP, non-GAAP over here. I think in non-GAAP they basically are as always they're making adjustments, but it's not clear. Well, you know what we can do is we can look at gross margins. I'm sorry, we can look at cash flow from operations. Micron was a small company way back when. Come a long way, dog. All right, so let's look at cash flow from operations because that's going to be pretty important. Depreciation is under COGS? Shit, you're shitting me. The hell? Where's it go, though? Where's it go, then? You smoking? What you smoking? You trying to tell Shkreli? You trying to tell me about financial statements? Dogs. Come on, man. You're in the major leagues now. Look at Sarah coming out with the accounting. Don't you ever do that. I would win the Excel World Championships if they would let me. They banned me. So you can't play. Wouldn't be fair. All right, so look at cash flow. You see that? You see model net income? So on the net income side, they lost 1.3 billion. This is the best accounting lesson you could take. You really want to understand accounting. Look at Micron. Net income, GAAP net income, negative 1.3 billion, right? That's from our model. Their reporting was negative 1.2, so we're pretty close, about 30 million off. So what makes the difference? Well, let's add back depreciation. That's the main difference. And what do we have? The loss goes to a profit. It goes from 1.2 in losses to 1.3 in gains. So it's positive $1 billion. And that all came from depreciation. So we can actually do something even crazier here. We can do almost like a separate line item if we wanted. I've never done this before, but let's try it this way. Let's do depreciation. And then let's do gross profit plus depreciation. And let's do gross margin. I'll put these in like this. So now you can see that excluding the machines, if you exclude the machines, The gross margin was 40%, which is why they're willing to sell the chips on the income statement. It looks like they're willing to sell the chips for a loss, which no company would do that. You'd rather burn the chips, right? Throw them away. Yeah, I don't think you could do much with the equipment when it's gone. It's pretty much useless at that point. Yeah. So that's the big difference here. I do this right. Mess one of these up. 115, 27579 minus 72, 1401. Why ain't it 1401? Oh, okay. There's a separate, okay, there we go. And so now you have CapEx. The problem with this is that he spent 1.8 billion on CapEx. So you're back in sort of this negative territory. So let's see if we add that back. You can do it negative, positive, doesn't matter. However you see fit. Autism's a complicated illness. Some people prefer not to think of it as an illness. I would say we all want dignity. So if you choose to feel that way, it's fine. I spend a lot of time trying to make treatments for autism. Like all psychiatric illnesses, including Alzheimer's, it's very hard to know where to start. So one of the places to start is genetically defined autism, like Fragile X syndrome. In Fragile X syndrome, the FMRP protein is malformed. Oscar. FMRP is a very bizarre protein. It's a Fragile X mental retardation protein. It results in very profound autism. So that gives us some clues as to what's happening in autism. Autism is sometimes called a spectrum disorder because there's a spectrum of symptoms. It's not really a spectrum of severity. Severity is always present in medical diagnoses. You can have moderate asthma, severe asthma, mild asthma. The spectrum part relates to three different constellations of symptoms. The first is aberrant behaviors. Aberrant behaviors include things like hand flapping, which is common, and other kind of stereotypical repetitive behavior. The second is an emotional deficit, so an inability to speak with other people, look them in the eye, want social interaction, understand social cues, things like that. Finally, there's often this, as well as, being mute. That's a fairly common thing as well, folks who are pretty mute. Finally, there's a fairly profound cognitive impairment. So, those are sort of the three main things. Stereotyped and very diverse array of behaviors, social deficits, and cognitive impairment. There's not much you can do about autism. I think therapy can help a little bit. We still don't understand it too much from a medical perspective. Doctors will give drugs like SSRIs just to give something, but SSRIs don't do anything for autism. Best thing you could do is, of course, just love your child, and that goes without saying, I think. But it really is a tough and frustrating thing. One day we'll understand the brain better and understand what's happening. the desire to try all this stuff, like, oh, maybe it's this diet, or maybe it's, things like that. It's all flailing, attempting to alter reality. And the reality is we just don't have any idea what's happening. I don't think a single drug has been shown to ever be effective in autism. And two of my companies had different treatments there. So, anyways, tough illness. So we can do free cash flow, which of course is just net income, or cash flow from operations here, I should say, minus PP&E or CapEx. And we can see that there was a negative free cash flow for that specific quarter. But free cash flow is a weird thing, because you're buying this CapEx for future revenue, right? The cash flow from operations is kind of what you're getting from CapEx from a while back. Yeah, I think the good thing about autism is it's mostly confined to the brain, right? The mind. So as society has a better understanding of just how common this illness is, we're starting to get a sense for both a treatment someday, but also respecting people who have this condition, which I think is great. 10 or 20 years ago, I think it was a lot more difficult. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I wish you the best as you navigate that. It can be very expensive, and it can be very difficult for families. It causes a lot of productivity loss. Most people with autism do not have some. Sounds like your son's very different, but most people with autism don't have some Rain Man magic trick ability to do math or something like that. That's, I think, a harmful stereotype. The average person with autism has an IQ of around 80. This isn't some trade-off where it's like, oh, I get intelligence, but I lose social ability. That's a common misunderstanding. It certainly can happen. The person excels in one area at the detriment of another, but it's fairly uncommon. And again, a harmful stereotype, I think. Okay, so let's stick to Micron for a second here. So you get the picture, huge amount of CapEx. I don't know, what are they buying? Are they buying all ASML AMAT equipment? Is that what they're doing, chat? I don't think Elon is autistic, no. Again, there is this tendency to want to be in this neuroatypical or spectrum situation, and I think it's really kind of harmful. A lot of people say colloquially oh, I'm just autistic or something like that, and it's just not constructive at all to the people who actually suffer from this. You're really being kind of disrespectful. As much as people think I'm this irreverent jerk, I actually do care a lot about healthcare. Human health is precious. It's all we have. And, it's kind of sacred in a lot of ways to me. But, I don't expect people to understand that. But I think that, Yeah, autism is a really, really tough one. You know, it's just such a big problem out there. And we don't have the answers yet. So I hope that science can catch up, but there's sometimes in life, like sometimes there are eras in civilization where we stay dark on things for centuries. And the mind is one of those things. Our understanding of the brain and the mind and how it works really has not materially advanced in 100 years. You know, you can make an argument otherwise, of course, and I could easily make that argument for you, but in reality, it's a very, all the advances are nominal. I mean, we could do all kinds of interesting experiments, but are they really revealing of anything important? I would say no. And we're still just guessing on so many of this. So we're in this era that's unfortunate. You know, I had a friend die of cystic fibrosis just before the Vertex cures came out, and he would have been cured. The Vertex drugs are functional cures for cystic fibrosis. And so he lived in an era before, and you know, we're talking about days of 5 to 10 years, a really tiny era. He lived in that era before the technology could get there, and really unfortunate timing, given he was just years away from the research getting there. So you think about how lucky we may be in some ways, but not so lucky in others. Yeah, just if he was born just 5 or 10 years later, he would have probably been fine. But instead, he went to high school with this guy. We were all planning our futures, and he was planning his death. And he died a little earlier than you would actually expect for cystic. So it's a really, really rough thing. All right, let's look at some 10Ks for Micron. So I want to get a sense for, I think I understand the business. We all use Micron products, right? We know what they do. 1978, Boise, Idaho. I did not know they were in Boise. 5th largest semi in the world. 43,000 employees. Memory and storage. We all know RAM is volatile, right? LPD RAM, what's that? You guys know what that is? DDR. It's DDR4, DDR5, LPD RAM 4, and LPD RAM 5. Low power? This is their compute networking business unit. Okay. Sometimes I read mostly press releases, but yeah, I mean, like Tom's Hardware or something like that would be good for Micron. Okay, they have these 1x, 1y, 1z, 1 alpha. Looks like they're manufacturing. Yeah, it's a very cyclical business. So they're in a boom right now, but they could be in a bust just next year. Okay, now they have mobile business unit. So that's NAND with a multimedia controller, embedded multimedia controller, universal flash. Okay. It's funny with AI, I'm curious if they sell memory to NVIDIA. I don't think so. Yeah, Dalton, sure. Dalton, I went to Hunter, as you may know. Right now, EBU, Embedded Business Unit. I went to high school in Upper East Side. It was almost like a Gossip Girl episode. Okay. Yeah, very, very fond memories. I dated one Bronx science girl. Okay, so that all adds up. You have to have a thirst for learning. Just learn everything you can. Learn it over and over again. I mean, there are people who got PhDs in chemistry, but you use it or lose it. PhD does not guarantee that you remember things for life. So, unless you get constant re-exposure to the subject, getting your PhD does not, or any other degree for that matter, even finishing high school. You remember all the algebra you learned in high school? You got a high school diploma. It just means that at some point you did learn it. Prison was great. I made the most of it. I studied math mostly, a little bit of computer science, biology, of course, kept on top of the pharma industry. Made some new friends. Yeah, we're just on Micron here. Ooh, I should have updated this, shouldn't I? No, we didn't get computers for coding. Yeah, the patents would be useful to look at, I agree. So you have a Utah fab. All right, I just wanted to look at some of this. So fiscal 2023 was really bad, huh? So that's one of the other weird things, as I hope I gave you something to think about on the PE ratio, like what happens if a company's earnings are negative? Can you apply a PE ratio to that? Same thing applies here, where we're trying to figure out, hold on one second. Just had an idea. guys have so many questions. Oh yeah, so do you think the stock price correlates with the boom and bust of the revenue? Rocco, thanks brother. Do you think that the stock price goes up and down with the revenue? And why or why not? You would think that that's got to happen, right? At least to some extent. Not necessarily. It's really kind of a mind trip that the company's earnings can decline from positive to negative and the stock can actually go up. You know, if you're taught the real simple PE ratio stuff, you really lose out on understanding what business is all about. So of course earnings are important and of course growth is important, but it's not everything. And when you're judging a stock price, it's really a completely different thing, isn't it? In it. What the heck? Okay. So let's take a look at gross margins over time. So here, positive 38, positive 45, negative 9. Boom, bust. In the bust, you just hope to not lose everything, right? Let me get these dates right, too. Oh, 9, 2, 21, 9, 1, 22, 8, 31. Okay. 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 There's earnings per share. Same thing as net income, just okay, so what can cause a business to go, I want you to think about this, to go from $6 or $7 billion in net income, then 8 or 9 in net income, billion in net income, then negative 6. And how do we know that negative 6 is going to be negative 14 next year? The conditions of the industry very, very brutal and they change quickly. But this is just a small picture. Some people call this cyclical growth. That even though there are these business cycles, and that's where the term really comes from. I hate it when people use the term in crypto. Ugh, really pisses me off. Because there's no real cycle in crypto. There's a cycle in DRAM because there's supply and demand. And the supply and demand lags each other. The term is cycle. Yeah, exactly, Elmer. So I'm going to draw supply, and well, I'm going to draw demand in green, okay? So demand will go up, you know, maybe a new chip comes out. And here's what will end up happening. Supply is sort of lagging. Supply sees the demand going up, and they catch up. But in this period, we call this a shortage, right? Supply hasn't caught up to demand. But supply will continue, and demand might even start to tail off. And supply doesn't realize this for a while. Then maybe decides, oh shit. And this we call a glut, right? By the time we're out of the recession or the glut, demand is back, and supply is still confused as to what to do. Maybe supply is more conservative this time because it got beat the shit out of it last time. So it does something like that. So that's business cycles. NVIDIA is a very interesting question about, will NVIDIA hit the same thing happening? The problem is with NVIDIA is that they control the supply. A lot of times in DRAM, the actions are based on your competitors. It's a collective action of many players. The red line is many different companies, many firms deciding together. In the case of NVIDIA, it's just them. So the industry's really, you know, kind of pegged to them. Yeah, people want to take the cycle or the cyclical idea and they want to extend it because it's a nice mental model, but it doesn't really work, and it certainly doesn't work on prices. You know, so people tried to distort and make the cycle concept work for crypto. So crypto has had this thing where, I don't know if you chart Bitcoin. Let's see if we can chart Bitcoin. And I like Bitcoin. So this is '08. I don't know. Let's see if we could do this every 4 years. Is that okay? And we're here now. So Bitcoin is more or less, I mean, I can pull up the chart, obviously. This is 0. It's more or less done something like this, right? And that looks like a cycle. It sort of feels like, okay, here's a pattern. But there's nothing that says the next thing that happens isn't that. And it just stays down here forever, right? And there's nothing that says that this can't happen. It goes up and we never see a cycle again, right? Oh, I'm desynced again? Why has this happened? Check. I gotta turn the resolution down. I turn the FPS down too. That should be better. Okay. So anyway, the idea of the cycle doesn't really apply here. There's the halvening, which doesn't really make much of a difference, but we're tempted to think, okay, X happened, Y happened, X happened, Y happened, X happened, Y happened. Next time X happens, Y is going to happen, right? But this is just Pavlovian. Pavlov, you're not a dog like Pavlov, right? anything could happen in markets, anything. Like I said, we could have it down 99% and stays there forever, or up 1,000% and stays up forever. There's no real, you know, reasoning that says that it has to go up or doesn't. In fact, the opposite is true, right? If you knew something was going to happen in the future, you could predict it today. Now let's look at free cash flow for Micron. So this is cash flow after expenses for equipment. And you can see that it was positive 2 billion, positive 3 billion, then negative 6. So they wiped out all the earnings for the last 2 years. That's annoying, isn't it? Let's go back a little further. We got to go back a long time for these cyclical companies. They're not easy to understand right away. And I love Godel because people give me really disparate assignments. If you join Godel, I'm happy to work on stocks for you. But sometimes it takes time because I'm just not an expert in everything, you know. I'm an expert in very, very few things, and even those things I'm losing my expertise on over time. You know, I'm not in the pharma industry anymore, so I'm going to be a little less, you know, on the ball in pharma. I am in the software industry, so I'm very, very sharp on that, but that's still kind of a new thing for me, software, at least as an operator. So there's all kinds of, you know, things to keep in mind there. Okay, we're going to add 21,435, 13,883, so it looks like they've had an okay year this year. Is this the real income statement? No, it's MD&A. MD&A was a management discussion and analysis. Probably the most important part of most 10Qs or 10Ks. But look at the CNBU business unit. 9 billion, 12 billion, 13 billion, awesome, right? What's next year? It's got to be like 15 billion, right? Nope. Can you imagine? That's your... Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I'd love to come out to Cambridge. As soon as I'm off probation, I got some people to hang out with there at MIT and some other places. There is some delayed reaction in stock markets, and you can arbitrage them to some extent. It's something obviously people at Jane Street and Two Sigma and Renaissance and D.E. Shaw study very carefully. You have to study that really intelligently and carefully. It's not just a simple, you can't look at it too simply. Everything has to be done through the right lens. That's what I was talking about last night with respect to cassava. And if you're looking at the problem through the wrong lens, you're not going to get anywhere. Even a really good drug can fail a clinical trial. It's one thing I pointed out that, you know, can be easy to take for granted. If your drug only works over 3 or 4 years, which kind of seems plausible given how long the Alzheimer's disease process takes, you know, why do you do 1-year clinical trial? I wouldn't gamble with 0 days, unless you're writing them or something. You find a systematic advantage that somebody else hasn't found. I wouldn't bother with 0 DTEs. Now, if you're a truly skilled trader, perhaps you can make money on them, but there are very, very few people who are truly skilled traders. Most of us are just trying to gamble a little bit. And heck, I do it too, you know. It's human nature, but just don't let it control you or hurt you. You know, if you're gambling and losing a lot, you don't think that you're going to get it back next time. You know, you're just gambling and it's time to stop. Building an algo is different. Now you're trying to be a quant investor. But just understand that, you know, it's a competitive space. You know, you're not the only guy building an algo.
There's a lot of guys out there. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. You can do it. But just be ready. Stock market's a violent place. A lot of people like me ready to mug you. There's no rule against mugging in the stock market. You can get mugged. I don't know about long-term retirement names. It's tough because management changes. Management can ruin. Any good company can be ruined by bad management. People get fed up. They don't want to work there anymore. So how do you find a business that's that good? I mean, Coca-Cola. There's a couple companies like that, but they're generally not in my industry. My industry requires management. The products just aren't that good. The products are easy to make copies of. So there's no cultural advantage at Eli Lilly. There's no cultural advantage at any drug company. Its software is largely the same as well. Any other software company with better management, better product can come knock them off the block. So those kinds of like really long-term plays, they basically have to be structural business advantages. J&J is just a drug company now. They spun off consumer, and it's 80% of the profits are drugs, like 20% medtech, and the medtech stuff is very drug-like anyway. So yeah, someone like Coca-Cola or Disney, that's something that can last forever. And you get earnings yield at the end of the day, right? Coca-Cola is going to pay you dividends. You get something from the investment. Okay, so yeah, this is free cash flow for Micron. Isn't this amazing? You run your chip business for 4 years, and almost all the profits are wiped out in 1 year. Now, it's actually still right net. Let me do this. So I'm going to trail cash flow. So this is 2-year moving average. This is a 3-year moving average. And this is a 4-year moving average. Let's get some more years, right? This is interesting. It's starting to get saucy. It takes a long time to analyze the security properly. On Wall Street Bets, a lot of people laughed at me when I said it takes hundreds of hours. I was wrong. It could take thousands of hours. You want to make decisions in 5 minutes. Why? Because you get that itch you got to scratch. You're addicted. You might as well just do heroin. Fucking skip it. Skip the stock market. You want to be a proper addict, just go ahead. Go straight to heroin. Go to Gorilla Gas. You're right, Almir. It's definitely a pleasure, and that's why Warren Buffett is happy to go to work. He used to call it tap dancing to work. If only Harambe was here. See Gorilla Gas. I would hit up Harambe with that GG. I'd be like, here, homie, hit this. And he'd be like, he'd get addicted. He'd want the canisters. Harambe. I know a lot about pre-gambling. I know everything about pre-gambling. Come on. I'm talking to the farmer bro here.
Okay, so Micron picture looking a little bit better here. It looks like last year was just a really horrific year for semis. Not semis, for DRAM. Because like if you just take this snapshot, this window, right? Made $18 billion over those 5 years. Free cash flow. Right? And if you did a PE ratio on that, it's 5 times earnings. Oh, what a deal, right? 6 times earnings. What a deal. Gorilla gas, it's my new narcotic. I was banned from the drug industry, but you can't brand me from these streets. All right, let's get a couple more years going. Isn't it crazy? They had 30 billion in 2018 in revenue. Goes all the way down to 21, back up to 30, back to 15, and I think they're going to do more than what they're going to do, 25 this year. That's guidance. That's like an official number, basically. So in years where they do 25 billion for them is like break even. It's crazy, right? Yeah, I have anxiety. I have clinical anxiety, so I take anxiety drugs, yeah. I take Effexor. Sucks, man. But thanks to Effexor, I can live a normal life. I'm very lucky. A lot of people have negative experiences with the pharmaceutical industry. My experience was life-saving. So I can understand some people who didn't have a positive experience. They might hate the drug industry. I love the drug industry. I love the science. I love the medicine. I love every part of it. You know, basically, I love the game.
A nigga like me, man, I love the game. I love the hustle, man. I be feeling like one of them ball-playing niggas, you know? Like Bird, Magic or something. Yeah, you know a nigga got dough. A nigga could leave the league. But if I leave, the fans still gonna love me, man? I get love out here in Harlem, man. I done sold coke on these streets, man. Hash, weed, heroin. As long as niggas is feeling it, a nigga like me can hustle it. That's my gift in life, eh? You know? What? The fuck you laughing at, B?
You, man. Funny, man. You a hustling motherfucker, man. For real, baby. You fucking killing me, man.
Well, you know me, baby.
Love the game. I do. You know me, baby. Okay. Oops. What is our cash flow number?
Amazing, huh? If you look at it as on a backward-looking basis, Micron's pretty solid. That's why they've become one of the biggest semiconductor companies, right? Now can we look at the stock price at the end of the year? I actually have this on Godel. Let me see here. It takes a while. Let me see this feature. I want to see. Oh, this feature is good. GIP, graph intraday price. But if you want to pull up the chart since forever ago with high resolution, you actually can do that in Godel. It actually loads every tick in the history of the company. So this it renders the first 5 years, but look what happens if you scroll backwards. You get tick resolution since the IPO, or day resolution at least. You can relive trading it. Micron's on a wild ride. You can actually get tick by tick from way back when. Try it out. So let's see, end of year 2024. I'm making a table function as well for table prices, but for now I'll do it like this. Should be like one command you can run to get this. It'd be like Micron, equity, HP, and then Y. HP space Y. That would be the way you would do it on. Let me look actually. Can you do that on the rival platform? I'm not sure. This is a rival legacy platform that basically not, they're probably going to discontinue it. It's so bad. They're just going to sunset it. There's no need for this platform anymore. Yeah, HPY. We don't need to use their name. Okay, HP space Y does work, so we need to implement that ASAP. You heard me, Dev. You heard me, Dev. I know you're watching. Get to work, bro. Huff that gas. You got the canister on my desk. Go. Hit that gas and make this feature. People are waiting. These people aren't going to wait forever. Now, what's funny is that this is the calendar year. Hold on. This is the calendar year. So I actually don't want the annual. I want the year end of the fiscal. So I kind of want the price on literally maybe the date. But I think this is good enough, honestly. For our current purposes, it's probably fine. We can get the exact price. I'm not sure it's going to make a difference. You almost maybe you want the average price for that period. And again, that should be relatively easy to do, even with the legacy platform, which costs about, 10 times Godel? No, wait. 20 times Godel? Is that right? No, it's even more. Is it 50 times Godel? 62.5 times Godel. Wow. And you could have gotten it for cheaper, but we are going to raise the price, so lock in today. Although we're growing a little too fast, so I actually prefer if you wait and think about it, just so my monthly, quarterly numbers look good. I don't promote too hard. So I'm doing all this long-term analysis, so when I want growth, I can do some short-term analysis. So I want you to look at the graph of the stock price versus the earnings.
I actually, maybe you guys can teach me how to do this on Excel, because they've changed Excel a lot since I was a kid. I need these on 2 different axes. So I want one going to the left and one going to the right. No, Godel won't be $20 ever again. We lose money. I think we lose money at $20. Yeah, we're going to do an API at some point for Godel. It's not our priority. Okay, make the graph. That's what it used to be in Excel. The instruction somebody's giving me right now. That's what I used to do, right? So, right-click the data set. I'm right-clicking, nothing's happening. Select data. Is this series 2, allegedly? Yeah, this is all fucked. This is a PC. Format plot area, format data series. Format chart area. I don't see format data series. Ah, format data series. Thank you. Very good. Ah, my man. He did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. Who's that, man? Who's that? You gotta send me an email. I gotta get you Clifford Long. You might take over for the OG, man. I might have to hand the torch to you. I don't spend all day in Excel like I used to. Might gotta hand the torch over. You can send me an email, martin@martinshkreli.com. Whatever you need, man. You deserve it. Just ask me what you need. You want some dough? You want personal consultant service? I can tell you got your mind on the game. You're doing this stuff all day. All right. So what data set is this? It should tell me even as I hover over. Okay, great. 83. What's 83? Stock price? Okay, yes, perfect. Cash flow. Okay, so the orange line is the stock price. And the blue line is free cash flow. So this is annual free cash flow, right? What's the correlation? There's actually a function in Excel called correl, which is really interesting. We were doing a video game. We no longer are doing it. We do a lot of different things at DL Software. So the correlation coefficient is actually negative. You want to buy Micron when the cash flow is the worst. This is very light comparison of what quants do for a living. They do it in much more data, much more sophisticated ways. Let's get some more data. Let's see how that correlation coefficient holds up. You cannot trust the patterns. Thank you. Chatan asks this question. Can you trust the patterns? No. When it comes to trust, you got to act like you're DMX in finance. DMX had a very famous line. I got to sign in here. See, I think I have a Genius account somewhere. Let's go. So yeah, you can't trust data, you can't trust markets. It's not easy. You're in a probabilistic game. If you ever catch yourself saying, oh, every time this happens, the stock goes up or some bullshit like that, no, there's no every time. As always, I upload all these models on my GitHub, so you can always check them out there. If you want to go over them yourselves, save them, modify them. GitHub's very easy to learn. You, in fact, don't need to download anything. Just you can download them off GitHub. But if you learn the command line of GitHub, it's maybe a little bit more useful, but it's really up to you. Notice I'm just skipping to the cash flow statement. I don't really care about anything else. Okay, finally, they had another trough back here. Correlation coefficient has changed quite a bit. At this point, these things aren't correlated at all. Great. Okay. So stock price, free cash flow. No, I just want to help Eric. A lot of people think I'm a bad guy. And the more things I do to help people, the more people will say, hey, no, wait a second. I know that Shkreli guy. He's not so bad. To the point where half of Wall Street new trainees grew up on my videos. I'm really happy about that. Everyone at Goldman Sachs, shout out to GS here in New York. Hope you guys all become rich. Just working at Goldman Sachs, you're already rich. You're blessed. DJ Khaled. Many such cases, Almir. So many people in venture capital, private equity. You guys will teach me, I mean, I learn every time I talk to you. You ask me good questions. I've learned more from my employees, coworkers, mentees, students than I have learned myself. So, people ask a good question. Why not this? Why not that? How about this? Have you considered that? And I sit there and say, maybe you're right. And through that process, I've slowly created one of the best, I think, processes for looking at securities with everybody's help. It's almost like crowdsourced intelligence. Okay, so a little bit more here. It looks like Micron was almost like a smaller company, much smaller company back then. And it's funny, their revenue is the same as it was 10 years ago. But that was just because the industry was really, really crappy for a couple of years, it looks like. Or just the last 12 months was the worst DRAM glut ever. Seems like just really bizarre, like... Here you actually have correlation starting to increase, not positive correlation probably. You could do R squared in your head. Only improved a little bit. So this is cash flow. This is profitability, right? 0. And the stock price just increased. I think this was like just a very aberrant thing. And if I can actually get free cash flow here. So let's assume what are we going to assume? We actually have most of 2024. It's basically flat. So what's Micron's stock price now? Like 90? Really can't make any sense of it, right? No rhyme or reason. The correlation coefficient says they're slightly negatively correlated. Slightly. So you slightly want to buy when cash flow drops like a rock. But this is only, you can't really trust this linear regression because there's so many other factors at play, hidden variables. Like, what about the rest of the stock market? Can you control for that? If we control for beta, what does it look like? It could be really interesting to do that. What if we add other companies that are highly cyclical? Will that tell us something? And once you do all of that, you can really come up with a decent algorithm that might be able to not guarantee you profits, but probabilistically provide some profits. So as a quant, you have to sit there and study and think and analyze and play with all these numbers and have a lot of mathematical sense around you. Like you really have to be strong at knowing all the tools in the mathematical toolkit. So if you don't know the simple correlation, that's a pretty rudimentary way to do things. You have to know things like t-SNE. Y'all know t-SNE? If you're not t-SNEing, what are you even doing? What are you even doing? Yeah, I'd say I'm a libertarian, more or less. K means clustering. No, this would be an algorithm for all cyclical tech companies, basically, that you felt were just like similar enough to Micron. And there are plenty around the world. And there's other DRAM makers, for starters. And I know for every 100 viewers, there'll be like one or two that will be like, okay, I'm going to learn t-SNE. That's Shkreli says that's important. I want to learn it. And those are the guys that will become billionaires. There have been many people who became billionaires on these videos. But it wasn't because of me. It was within them all along. I didn't have anything to do with it. I can't take the credit for that. Oh, I'm really going backwards now in time. Micron's only had 2 negative cash flow years in the last 10 years. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah, I mean, some of the algos lose over time. Yeah, Darren. Yeah. If you look at the investor list for DL Software, almost all those guys watched my videos. It's a lot of the leaders in technology and investing. But again, those people would have been successful anyway. You know, there's no causality necessarily. Those people are looking all around the internet for anything. Oh, what can I learn? How do I get better? So those people would have been just fine whether or not I was there at all. I'm glad that they had me in their recipe, but they must have had other videos they watched and other things that they did that contributed to their success. But it's funny that there's that commonality. And that's why I started to do videos again. I kind of quit. And then after the investors told me how important they were to their success, I said, maybe I should keep doing it. It just takes so much time out of my day. But it also energizes me, so I find myself, I have more time to work. So head into the office after this and try to create some shareholder value. All right, here's cash flow from operations for 12 and 11. I need the stock price, which I have to use our rival to get. That won't, every time I have to do that, I'm gonna make it myself until I don't need the rival anymore. And the $2,500 rival is obsolete. So Micron stock was $6 back then. It's $100 now.
So the orange line is just the stock price going up and up and up.
The blue line is cash flow. Now, what if I kept taking this average cash flow? Remember this setup? I really want you to pay attention to this line. If you look at this line, in any 3-year period, Micron had no year where it lost money. I would count this as flat. And if you looked at any 5-year period, you would count that, and that excludes, even that year. Now, sometimes you could take what's called a CAPE, or like cyclically adjusted PE ratio. So let's say you go backwards and say the average cash flow for the last 6 years was 11 billion. Free cash flow. That's a lot. That's over 6 years. That's 9 times earnings. Well, the historical cash flow. I mean, the cash flow should go up over time, right? The Micron could be pretty attractive. All these AI chips are going to need DRAM, but I don't know that they're going to, they don't do GPU stuff, right? So the servers need the RAM, but for data loading, but I don't know if how important the DRAM is. I have to ask some of my engineers. $50, Micron's too cheap. Price versus value. Well, we try to find value and then expect price will show up. That's my motto. I just do discounted cash flow. Look how far back we're going. This is fun. Well, it's fun for a nerd like me, but hopefully it's fun for you too. It really grew low gross margin for a while, ranging between -9 and +32. It got up to 59% gross margin. Holy shit, that's high. That's after depreciation. Yeah, they basically never lost money if you extend the window to 3 years. Right? They've never lost money over more than 3 years. And the average is closer to 4 billion free cash flow, because that includes some of their early years. But their peak, the absolute peak, was that 2018 period where it was just madness. They just made a fortune. Will they come back to that? Or will the peak be even bigger next time? You look at that, it's cheap stock. If you look at the most recent average 3-year period, it's not so cheap. What's up, Carter? So Micron is making HBM3E. That's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Formula for free cash flow. It's cash flow from operations, which is this line. It's the first of the 3 parts of the cash flow statement, minus CapEx, which is just one element of the cash flow from investing part of the cash flow statement. Okay, so really going back in time now, not that far, honestly. The old days of Micron. Stock price just up and to the right. Cash flow bouncing around break even. They have this huge boom. They have this huge bust. Tricky one. I mean, given that NVIDIA, they're a supplier to NVIDIA, I'm pretty bullish on NVIDIA. And they're pretty profitable regardless. Maybe we can see a $200, $300 billion Micron. Huge bust was in cash flows right now, but the stock didn't drop. Last year, the company, the last fiscal year, the company lost $6 billion. I don't know if repetition is the only key to success. It doesn't hurt. I wish there was one key to success. I'm still figuring out myself. Passion doesn't hurt. Flexport, let's go. Yeah, Flexport will go public someday. Ryan's really good. Ryan supported me a lot in my career. I'm really lucky to have him as a friend. And his brother. Okay, now if you take that 3 years and go back, there was a period in the great financial crisis where they did lose money. So my 3-year thing is kind of out the window. You'd have to do trailing 6 years or trailing 7 years for it to make more sense. And then if you do the average, I don't know, it's still cheap to me. I like it. Again, semis aren't my thing, and the boom-bust nature of semis is something you really got to understand. If you don't understand it, you can get crucified. Correlation now, going back, 15 years or so, is literally 0. So this chart means nothing. There's nothing the chart can tell you. It's just descriptive at this point. We still have to check, right? Rippling guys, yeah, absolutely. There's more than one rippling guy. So break even, break even, break even, profit, boom, bust. Stock just goes up and up and up and up and up. It scares me a bit. This is way back when Micron just had a few billion a quarter. A few billion a quarter. A few billion a year in revenue. Now it's 30 billion. So price to sales multiple. Maybe we should look at that. What do you think? Would that be interesting? I almost never look at price to sales. It could be interesting. Why would that tool make sense? Well, the stock price grew with revenue. Revenue is almost like predictive of stock price growth. Why? Well, I think stockholders trust that there'll be some benefit, right, there has to be, to them selling more chips, right? I want you to see what happened in the dot-com bubble. You need to see it. It's going to be painful, but you need to see it. You need to experience what I experienced. Look at this price. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. I know it's hard. I should have done a viewer discretion video warning. It's for your own good. I hate it when people show me stuff I don't want to see on the internet. Oh look, check this out. This guy gets mowed down by gunfire. I'm like, dude, what? Why would I want that? Why would I want to see that? Why is that cool to you? Are you psycho? You're psycho, right? Okay, so yeah, $1, $40, back to $2, now up to, yeah, $100. A roller coaster, right? Yeah, enterprise value over sales is better, no doubt about it. You just have to go laboriously go through every piece of data here, which I did not want to spend my day looking at Micron, but I will do anything for my Godelians. So yeah, let's see if we do price to sales. We can kind of do that this way. Not price to, yeah, we could do price to sales. All right, so we're just gonna, I guess, graph the factor. Or graph the quotient or whatever. And basically, the stock price is a surrogate for market cap. So this is not too meaningful from a, like, what does this number actually represent? But it's sort of a multiple. It's a pretty just simple chart. But it shows you that, let's see, what's the average of this thing? The central tendency is 650, and sometimes the market gets ahead of itself, and sometimes the market gets below itself, which it's doing right now. And I would argue the market cap should be higher. But the stock price has increased as revenue has increased. And the correlation coefficient there could be very interesting. I would imagine that's actually going to be, what would you guys say, 0.5? It's going to be 0.9? It's not going to be 0.9. Maybe 0.5? Coral? Wow! 0.75. Revenue and stock price. Predict the revenue, you get the stock. Correlation coefficient equals coral in Excel. This gets you the R squared, linear regression. Stock price and revenue. Correlation coefficient goes between -1 and 1. So it's highly, highly correlated. Interestingly, right, free cash flow is not correlated. Why? Does that make sense to you guys? How much you sell, but not how much you make. Kind of crazy, isn't it? No correlation whatsoever to free cash flow. But huge correlation. I mean, that's just stunning. Think about how interesting that is. No, it's R squared. "30-year AI bubble." I think it basically is because free cash flow is not forward-looking. But it would still seem like you got to make money, right? But it's kind of backward-looking. Yeah, R squared is between -1 and 1. No, R squared can be, yeah, I guess you're right. No, I think you might be right, Kamal. Imaginary, no, unless it's an imaginary number, right?